Hi there, business owner. Are you looking to improve your business knowledge? Do you want to see behind the scenes of successful businesses? And more importantly, are you looking to build a better business in just 15 minutes each week? If so, you're in the right place. Welcome to the 3Bs podcast. Welcome to another episode of the 3Bs podcast. If you're new around here, hi, I'm Stephanie, your host, bringing you 15 minutes of motivation, empowerment and learning to help you build a better business. This week's episode is no different, and as the title suggests, we're talking about SWOT analysis. We're going to talk about what it is, when you should use it, why you should use it, and more importantly, how to use it to build a better business. And before we get on to this week's episode, I just wanted to take a quick second to ask if you could kindly like, rate, and review this podcast, preferably 5 stars, wherever you are listening to it, to help me reach more business owners. I have some great things coming up, and we don't gatekeep around here, so I'd be really grateful if you could do the same and share this podcast with a fellow business owner to help them build a better business too. Without further ado, let's get on with this week's episode. First, let's start with what is a SWOT analysis. So people that have not heard of SWOT before, SWOT is an acronym which stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. It's a great tool that businesses can use to get a real overview of their business, both internally and externally, to look at the factors that are going to impact any decisions that business owners need to make. So they look at your internal capabilities, so what you can handle and what you cannot, which obviously helps identify any issues that may arise when you're making a decision for business growth, but also the external factors, which are often out of your control, but again, need to be taken into consideration when you're making those business decisions. You hear me talk all the time about informed business decisions and more informed business decisions, and they're incredibly important to businesses because the more informed you are when you make a decision, the more likely you're going to achieve the outcome you're hoping for, as opposed to just sort of guessing or hitting and hoping, as we like to call it. So a SWOT analysis is a great tool for seeing a whole overview picture of your business when making those business decisions. I'm going to go into each of the 4 letters of the SWOT analysis into a little bit more detail so you fully understand what a SWOT analysis is. And as I said, the S stands for strengths. These are your internal attributes that the businesses hold that will support a successful outcome. So they are the resources you have, the budget you have, the manpower you have, things like that inside the business that will help you with whatever decision you're trying to make. W is the opposite side of that. So W is your weaknesses. And again, this is your internal factors inside the business that could either hinder progress or affect the result in a negative way that you're trying to look for. So it could be that you don't have a lot of capacity, your manpower is slightly reduced, or it could be that you have a lack of expertise. It could be that you want to open a new store and the decision that you're looking at is that actually the location is not going to give you a high footfall. So therefore, that would be a weakness that you would put inside this SWOT analysis under W to help you make this decision. Then we're going to move on to O, and that is your opportunities. So these are external factors. So unlike the S and the W, your O is your external factors that the business could use to its advantage. Exploit's an awful word, but exploit to your business's advantage. So that could be market growth, that could be a change in regulations, that a little loophole you found that could really benefit your business if you made this decision, or it could be something as simple as social trends that affects your decision. It could be the date that something is released. So if you're going to look at the decision you're trying to make is when to launch your latest product line, and that would sell better in the winter, then the opportunity would be the time of year, for example. And finally, T is the opposite side of O, and that is your threats. And they are the external challenges that your business could face if it made this decision, or that may impact this decision that you're trying to review by completing the SWOT analysis in the first place. Things like competition is an external factor you cannot control. It could be the economy or political changes which can upheaval your decision and the impact of the outcome of your decision. They go into the T section of the SWOT analysis. I like to think of a SWOT analysis as a pros and cons list on steroids. So why would you want to do one? Would be to get a real detailed overview of your decision, a more thorough review of the decision you're going to make, and the impact, both internal and external, that decision, whichever way you decide to go, is going to be impacted. So whether that is a business decision regarding growth, whether that's a business decision regarding hiring your next member of staff, it could be a decision on whether to follow a particular marketing trend or not. It could be any number of scenarios that a SWOT analysis would be relevant towards, but you would want to carry them out to give yourself confidence in your decision making and to have a more informed decision, which, as I've said, will lead to a much higher chance of your desired outcome coming to fruition. So I guess the next question is, when would a SWOT analysis be used? And in short, they can be used for any decision in the business, but I personally don't carry them out in every single thing, and I don't believe that any business owner should use a SWOT analysis for every decision in their business. Number one, because they take up so much time. They're a time-consuming task, and as business owners, we never usually have enough hours in the day. And two, they can take up a lot of resources. So SWOT analyses usually require teams getting together to brainstorm all the different factors that are going to go into the analysis, and therefore you don't want to be getting all the teams together and using up those resources in your business for every single decision. The times where we use SWOT analysis is where the decision is a large business decision, maybe a big pivot or something like that, or when a lot of people are involved. We use a SWOT analysis as a way of getting everybody on the same page when making a business decision. And another time that SWOT analysis is really beneficial is if you are stuck on a business decision, or if there's a few of you that need to make the decision and you're split and can't make a decision, then a SWOT analysis is a great tool to use because it gives you an overview of the whole factors and the whole environment surrounding that business decision. And specifically, if you're a sole trader, it's a lot easier to get it down on paper or digitally, however you carry it out, to see that overview and not have to remember all the things that you've thought about that's going to influence this decision, because a big business decision usually requires you to go away and come back and look at it with fresh eyes. Same with if there's lots of you, or even just a few of you in a team that are split, having it down on paper and looking at the internal and external factors makes it much clearer and easier to make a decision that you're comfortable with, that you're confident in. And as I say time and time again, the more informed you are when making a decision, the more likely it is that your desired outcome will come to fruition. That is what's going to happen. So how do you complete a SWOT analysis? So first of all, you can choose whether you prefer to do it on paper, whether you prefer to do it digitally, however you choose to do it. My personal opinion, I think you should do it digitally because it's there for you to refer back to at a later date. But however you choose to do it, the first step's simple. Define the objective. Write down the decision that you're trying to make. What is the outcome that you are looking for? What is the goal of the SWOT analysis in the first place? Because whether it's a business decision, a project decision, or a strategic initiative, if you don't know where you're heading, you're just going to end up wasting time and resources. So have a clear point from the beginning that this particular SWOT analysis is for this particular thing. Then once you've got that, you need to gather together the team that you need to make this decision. So if it is a project related, you may want your project management team in on it. If it is a marketing decision, then you'll want your marketing team and maybe your social media team to get them together, or representatives from each team that's relevant. If it's a whole business decision, you may want members of every single department if you want all of their input into this. If you're a sole trader, it's nice and easy, it's just you. But you need to define the objective and then gather your team together before you even start your SWOT analysis. Then we get to step 3, which is your research and data collection. So you're going to go and get all the information that's relevant to that decision, whether that's the business, the market, your analytics and KPIs, whatever it may be. All of that information needs to be gathered together so that the time you spend physically together brainstorming and putting together the analysis is kept as short as possible. You need to be as efficient as possible and not waste any extra time that you don't need to. Once you have all your data together and got your team together, it is a case of brainstorming step by step. What you can do on paper or on your whiteboard is split it into 4, just like an England flag, a line down and a line across the middle of each, and write SWOT in each of the sections and just start bullet pointing them down. Now, what we often find happens is we do S first. So we go step by step. I do know the businesses that just throw everything at every section as it comes to their head, and that's how they brainstorm. But for us, we go step by step. So we do strengths first. But then what often happens is we get to weaknesses, and as we're writing down the weaknesses, more strengths pop into our head, and then we go back and sort of add to the strengths as we go through them all. If you are struggling for ideas for each of these, if you're starting to struggle, you've got to maybe get to opportunities and think, I can't think of any opportunities. That's fine. Go across the threats because it will probably flag up some opportunities to you anyway. And if a section is blank, you can always go back to it, and it's not the end of the world if there's nothing in a particular section. And then the final step is to analyze and strategize. So you're going to go through all the information you've got in your analysis, and you're going to use that to make a decision. That strategy, that strategizing element is not just the decision making, but also how to counter some of the more negative sides of the SWOT analysis. So you're going to look at the weaknesses and look at how you can either lessen the weakness or get rid of that weakness altogether. How can you counteract that? How can you ensure that they're not going to impact as heavily in the decision and the outcome of the decision? And how you can also bolster the strengths. So it's not just lessening the negatives, but also how can you boost those positives? Once you can see them, it's much easier for you to strategize on what is going for you. So if you are in a marketing decision, trying to make a marketing strategy decision, then whatever's in that strength, so whatever's working well is that your Instagram reach has doubled, then you're going to double down on Instagram because that's going to help you boost that strength. If your weakness is you're not getting any engagement on Facebook, then you can either mitigate that by putting more ad spend into Facebook or by not using Facebook as much and concentrating more on the other platforms to give you that better outcome. And that works the same with the threats and the opportunities. The difference being is that the opportunities and threats in your analysis are outside of your control. So what we tend to do is whatever appears in the threats is we will come up with contingency plans just in case they happen, on how can we make sure that the effect is as minimized as possible. And that is your SWOT analysis. So I hope this episode's been useful. I will see you next week for the next episode. And that brings us to the end of another episode of the 3Bs podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Please connect with us on social media. Like, rate and review wherever you are listening to this podcast so that I can help more business owners build a better business. See you next week.